Daredevil faced a deranged artist and almost lost a sidekick. It's an awesome little story with a pretty interesting villain, and I think you're gonna love it. So, I'm Adam Andrews, this is Top 10 Nerd, and let's talk about the artist who broke Daredevil. Our story picks up in Daredevil Volume 5, issue number 10. At this time in Daredevil's career, he has taken on a young vigilante protege named Blindspot, aka Samuel Chung. In his community, there is a shrine where people who need Blindspot's help can leave notes, but one night, a different kind of note was left, an invitation. This invitation led Blindspot to the address of a warehouse in Washington Heights where the mysterious invitee had planted a huge mural of some kind of battlefield alongside a body of one of his victims and buckets filled with the same stuff that he used to paint the mural, blood. When Blindspot called Daredevil to the scene, he was able to use his superior sense of smell to figure out that this painting was using the red from around 113 different people. Now the next issue picks up with a recently created, visibly obvious Inhuman fleeing from some thugs who are targeting him specifically for being an Inhuman. Even though his power is to simply create luminescent snowflakes that can't even do any damage, the thugs are going through with their plan anyways, until the Inhuman is saved and the thugs are introduced to the afterlife by a mysterious person. The Inhuman is thankful until his savior turns on him as well. Now back at the site of the mural, Daredevil alerted the police, the area became a crime scene, and now that the investigation is over, the owner of the warehouse is trying to capitalize on this mural by opening it up for the public and charging a $10 viewing fee. It's very New York. Obviously, this is met with quite a bit of opposition by the city and the police who try to interfere, hiring Daredevil's alter ego, Matt Murdock, from the DA's office to stop this from happening. It's kind of funny how that works out. Like, he just always happens to be in on the same thing that he happens to be working on as a superhero. I think it's kind of weird, I'm just saying. But unfortunately, some weeks later, when the owner was beginning to open the building up and collecting his admission fees, it turns out that whoever the artist of the mural was had returned and defaced the mural, replacing most of it with the quote, "You're only as good as your last performance," which was followed by a new address that directed the police and the heroes watching over it to a vacant building. On one of the floors of said building, the artist had struck again, planting the bodies of 6 Inhumans, including the one from the beginning of the issue, posing them doing regular daily tasks and even sitting on the toilet. Pretty bad. With this new work being connected to the previous one, Matt Murdock as his DA self was one of the first people on the scene. But while he was here working with the police, alongside Samuel Chung, who Matt had hired as his assistant, Matt sensed an extra presence in the distance and knew instantly that it was the perpetrator staying to watch as people uncovered his new work for the first time. And he knew that because this guy was an artist, and that's what artists do apparently. Also arsonists. Matt made up an excuse and left the scene to change to his Daredevil costume and confront the villain who was waiting on the roof of the building. As the villain uses his powers to draw in scents and sounds and any other sensory information around him, he also displays how utterly insane he is as he asks Daredevil for his thoughts on his quote art, while also introducing himself as Muse. Throwing one of his billy clubs, Daredevil begins to attack Muse, but not only does Muse catch the club and snap it in half, just showing how strong he is, but he drives Daredevil off using an explosive that was actually just a dummy grenade, and he escaped into the night. Now, back inside the crime scene, the new Atalan Security Service, aka the Inhuman Police, have showed up on the scene as this is a crime against Inhumans. Being led by Frank McGee, a former police officer and the current head of the NASS, the Inhumans continue their investigation using their advanced technology. Now, while Matt tries his best to request that they share whatever findings they come up with, it's fruitless, as in order to get the go-ahead for that kind of thing, he would need to go talk to the head honcho of the Inhuman people. And that's exactly what Matt, as Daredevil, goes to do, getting an audience with the Queen of the Inhumans, Medusa. Now, unfortunately, she pretty much instantly refuses Daredevil's request, but of course, we gotta get a fight scene in here, so because Daredevil does not accept that answer without first giving her more information, he refuses to leave, leading to a fight between himself and the Inhuman known as Karnak. Now, Karnak is pretty cool, and he possesses the ability to see the flaws in everything, and I do mean everything, in fighting styles, in plans, in devices, in people. There was even a time where Karnak found a flaw in death itself and brought himself back to life. It's super ridiculous, super stupid, maybe lazy writing, but kinda cool. Anyways, these two have a hand-to-hand fight and somehow Matt is still able to come out on top. But it was all for nothing as Medusa still says no. Normally we would expect a little more help from the Inhumans as they are kind of heroes, but as queen of the Inhumans, and this being a crime with mainly Inhuman victims, Medusa needs to show her people that she can protect them by handling it herself. So instead, Frank McGee agrees to go behind her back and work with Daredevil anyways. Now this whole little Inhuman rendezvous is interrupted by Daredevil receiving a call from Blindspot, his ward, if you want to call him that. Now it turns out that in the meantime, while all that was going on, Muse had attacked a courtroom that Blindspot, as Samuel Chung, his alter ego, happened to be helping at, and the villain was taking away Judge Laird, who had been presented by Councilwoman Andrea Pearson with the case to shut down public access to the location of this original crime, the blood mural that Muse made. Now being followed by Blindspot, Muse took the judge to the sewers where he had also apparently gathered and tied up Pearson and two police officers who were on the scene of the first crime. As a kind of weird punishment for trying to shut down access to his original work of art, Muse planned to use all of them for a new work representing the justice system. Luckily, Blindspot showed up and lured Muse away because Muse was like, oh, a hero, he has to be part of this new justice system artwork thing. Muse chased Blindspot deeper into the sewers, but the vigilante used his suit's camouflage ability to turn invisible and trick Muse. Blindspot then returned to the victims while invisible to free them and escort them to safety as Muse closed in on their location. To give the other victims extra time, Blindspot sort of sacrificed himself and tried to lead Muse away again, but unfortunately his technological suit ran out of power source, meaning batteries, leaving him unable to go invisible, and as a consequence, Muse captured him as he was just about to escape the sewers, leaving his phone on the street, having just tried to call Daredevil for help. Now going to the scene of Blindspot's capture where his phone was left, Daredevil and Frank McGee tried to figure out a game plan. But as that happened, Daredevil began to just tune everyone out. Tuned out Frank, tuned out the city, tuned out everything, sitting on the ground and meditating on his senses. Now since Muse's body acts like a vortex which can pull in every bit of sensory information around him, he is essentially an empty void of nothingness. And that is what Daredevil focuses his senses on, scanning the city for specifically areas of nothingness, for a blind spot in his senses. And he finds it. Now meanwhile, while that was happening, Muse took Blindspot to his garret, or his artist's warehouse thing, I guess, showing it off and its body part decor to Blindspot to try and scare him, do a little intimidation tactic. Now after doing a little monologuing, as all villains do, Muse was deciding what to do with his newest capture when Daredevil arrived, coming crashing in through a window and throwing his billy club yet again, which the villain caught yet again. Big surprise. Now with Blindspot as his hostage, Muse got suddenly inspired, and using his fingers, he very quickly removed Blindspot's ability to see, shall we say. You can probably figure out what happened there, or you can just look at the picture, because I'm sure there's a picture beside this. And then he just ran off, tossing Blindspot at Daredevil. Now luckily, this kid is a trooper, and he's okay. So, on his way out, being pursued by Daredevil, Muse and the hero got into a little scuffle in the dark that ended up crashing into a room where all of the missing people used in his mural were hanging from the ceiling, being drained, but thankfully, they're all still alive. Muse cut the ropes hanging them to distract Daredevil, who then caught them and then continued his pursuit. Making it onto the rooftop, however, the chase was immediately over as the entire roof was surrounded by the Inhuman authorities led by Frank McGee. With Muse cuffed, Daredevil caught up and, fueled by rage for Blindspot's injury, was about to seemingly put a beat down on the villain, but having noticed Daredevil's intentions and being completely and utterly insane, Muse broke his own fingers like this. He just started doing this, stating that that's what Daredevil would have wanted, for him to be unable to create more works of art. It was then that Daredevil took off Muse's freaky as hell mask, only to find out that the villain looked just as, if not more, terrifying underneath that mask. No explanation on why he looks like that, no one ever says a thing about it, he just looks like that. Muse was then taken away and imprisoned at the high security detention level of New Adelan. Now as for Blind Spot, who is now missing his eyes unfortunately, because of him, the duo were able to save the lives of more than 100 people who were used for the mural. Daredevil would have to go on as a hero, living with the guilt of what happened to Blind Spot, but funnily enough, Blind Spot would go on to later have his eyesight restored by the Hand, and after that, Blind Spot would face Muse once again, but that's a tale for another time. Because that's all she wrote. I'm Adam Andrews, I hope you guys enjoyed watching today on Top 10 Nerd. I'll catch you all on the flippy flop. Peace out, nerds!